Hello, friends. So, I have this card today. Jealousy. Your past wounds need healing. Work on your self love. You are far greater than you know. If you want to see that real quick, it's kind of backwards, but that's okay. So, that. Okay. So I need to record this in a new space because I'm getting a roommate because living sucks. So, but I hope everyone's having a good day. Now, I'm going to continue reading this book because I've had people say that they really like listening to me read. So, chapter 4. Something was in the page. Anyway. When Talk's plane touches down, a dozen black SUVs barrel down the runway to meet it. All air traffic into LAX has been diverted for the last 15 minutes, which means that thousands of people are currently spinning around the airport in a permanent holding pattern so the single plane can take all the time it needs. As the 747 deploys its air brakes, the cars roll in on either side with sirens blaring. Men and women in serious clothing and sunglasses sit behind the wheels and communicate with one another through small earpieces. At one point, a large van with the word SWAT painted on the side takes up a position behind the plane. A square-jawed man with a helmet leans out of the window of the van and points a large machine gun at the plane, as if expecting someone to hop out the back door with guns blazing. It's an eye-rolling show of force, even for LA. And if Talk were still on the plane, he'd be laughing his ass off. But Talk is not on the plane. Indeed, Talk O'Leary is nowhere to be found, and thus all the hullabaloo. Instead of moving to a gate, the plane rolls over to a small, unused hangar on the edge of the airport. This is where the real party starts, as employees of every government agency imaginable begin lining up like customers at a drab suit convention. Air marshals, TSA agents, LAPD, the FBI, the Port Authority, U.S. Customs and Immigration, even a couple of unidentified large guys from Homeland Security, who just stand to the side and mutter to each other. If you work for an agency with a lot of letters in its name, this is clearly the place to be. Water is good. I love water. Okay. The plane coasts inside the hangar and powers down, engines spinning slower and slower until they finally give up the effort and come to a stop. For nearly 40 minutes, nothing much happens save the agency heads engaging in a spirited discussion as to how to let passengers off and who should be the first to board the plane. At one point, a mobile staircase is rolled up to the front door, only to be removed a few minutes later. The spirited discussions turn heated. Cell phones are produced, and various high-ranking people are called. Inside the plane, weary passengers peer out of oval windows with a mixture of frustration and fear. The ones in the back know that something very odd has happened, while the ones closer to the front are running on rumors spread by those in the rear. In the cockpit, The pilot and co-pilot chat on the radio and endlessly fiddle with buttons. Finally, the stairway is rolled back into place. The SWAT team moves into position, stationing 4 men with large guns at the bottom of the plane and 4 more men on the steps of the staircase. Once they are ready, a state they signify with a needlessly complex series of hand signals. A man from the FBI walks between them and takes up residence next to the door. At this point, the passengers are hopeful that they will finally be let out and arrested or waterboarded or whatever the hell is going to happen, because any of that would be preferable to spending 1 more minute on the goddamn airplane. But it is not to be. The FBI man is literally reaching for the handle when he suddenly gets interested in his earpiece again and turns his back on the door. The SWAT team hears one guy inside the plane yell, "Oh, come on!" in a joyless display of frustration. Thankfully, his anger doesn't have to burn long. After a minute, the FBI man is joined by the large men from Homeland Security, and the door is finally opened. It takes almost 2 hours to get the passengers off the plane. As they step out the door, their IDs are perused by the men from Homeland Security. Once this is done, the travelers walk down the steps through a gauntlet of heavily armed police and over to a corner of the hangar. At this point, their IDs are compared against some kind of official list held by a bored-looking man with huge eyeglasses. After this man has confirmed that they are who they claim to be, they are taken to a different corner of the hangar, where a very apologetic and harried member of the airline PR staff offers them coffee or soda, gives them a sandwich, and maintains a tight-lipped smile while the passenger unloads all of his or her frustrations. The passengers are then left to mill around in the small corner, which smells of metal shavings and stale gasoline. A few of the more experienced travelers curl up on the ground and go to sleep, but most of the others either stand around looking dour or sit on the ground looking dour. As this is occurring, various government officials are pulling luggage from the underside of the plane. In plain view of the passengers, each suitcase, duffel bag, poorly taped cardboard box is opened and searched, just in case the missing man from Australia happened to crawl into the luggage compartment and fold himself into the size of an egg salad sandwich. At one point, an agent reaches into a hidden side pocket of a black duffel bag and pulls out a Ziploc bag with 4 joints inside, much to the relief of a wide-eyed teenager from Brisbane. The man just stuffs them back inside and keeps searching. That would suck. While the passengers are being questioned or yelling at the poor PR woman, and the agents are searching through their luggage, a small tanker truck arrives. It rolls into position underneath the wing and disgorges a pair of overalls-clad men, who unroll a hose from the side of the tank and attach it to the plane's waste containment system. 10 minutes and a lot of noisy sucking later, the truck is full. The plane is empty, and an unfortunate man from TSA is peering inside the holding tank with a flashlight in one hand and has tie held over his mouth with the other. After he pronounces the holding tank clean, one of the overall guys sticks a long metal pipe inside and starts moving it around. Everyone watching expects to hear the missing passenger cry out in pain, but the pipe just clinks back and forth against the sides of a dull, hollow sound. All of the stranded travelers are then loaded into a large bus with a yellow roof. The PR woman, who received 2 aspirin and a bottle of Jack Daniels from one of the attendants, is saying something to the busload of passengers. When she finishes, there is another round of loud and angry grumbling, but then one of the SWAT guys with the big gun steps up into the front of the bus, and that pretty much ends the conversation. I think that's fair. The bus pulls away in a cloud of exhaust and drops the passengers in the back area of one of the terminals, where they spend the next 7 hours answering questions about a man few of them even remember seeing on the flight. A particularly upset fellow, who by now was progressed into roaring drunk to just hungover, tells a harrowing tale about how he tried to save the plane by kicking down the lavatory door, but otherwise offers no useful information. Eventually, someone manages to make a phone call to the local news media, who shows up in droves and demand to know why American citizens are being held against their will. Microphones are thrust at spokespeople, tearful children are filmed asking for their parents, and the whole thing dissolves into a large ball of chaos. Oh boy. At this point, the agencies involved throw up their hands and let the passengers go. None of them are happy about the decision, but there really isn't anything else to be done. The passengers are clean, the plane is clean, the law enforcement folks have done everything but strip down to the bolts and sell it off for scrap. And there is simply no talk to be found. Somehow, a grown man has found a way to vanish from an international flight 40,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean. The government agents eventually drive away to fill out paperwork and try to explain the mess to their bosses. The plane is rolled out of the hangar and cleaned by a janitorial crew that has no idea what all the excitement is about. Dusk. Oh, it's about to end. Dusk turns to night, turns to dawn, and at 10 o'clock the next morning, a new and sunny group of passengers files into the flight and begins cramming their absurdly sized belongings in the overhead bins. None of them suspecting that all the LAX madness they heard about on the news yesterday occurred on this very plane. The first-class passengers settle in with their orange juice and vodka. The rest of the plane flips through in-flight magazines and wonder what movies will be shown. People are kind of dumb. But just as the pilot is getting ready to retract the jetway, a terrible noise roars out from the back of the plane. There's a round of gasps and screams as the noise continues. Then another round when a brilliant green flash bursts out from the cracks around the lavatory door. Before anyone has time to start panicking, a man with a silver briefcase suddenly comes crashing out of the bathroom. His shirt is torn across the front, and there are bright red scratches on his face and chest. One of his shoes is melted, filling the air with scent of burning rubber and plastic. But most disturbingly, the man's spiky black hair appears to be smoking. The passengers stare at the man. The man stares back. Then he smiles. His smile gets wider and wider, almost contagiously so, before he finally raises his eyebrows and addresses the stunned travelers. "Holy shit!" he says cheerfully. "I don't believe that worked!" Then before anyone can respond, he forces open the rear door of the plane, leaps onto the runway tarmac, and goes running off into the sunshine of another beautiful Los Angeles morning. that would be a really cool way to escape. To be able to somehow just vanish with the briefcase that that shines green. I wonder where he went. I know, but you don't. So it's more exciting that way. To me, anyway. Because I'm silly. Anyway. This story is just so interesting. It keeps getting partially more fucked up as well as just better. I love books that just continue to get better as you read them. It's one of my favorite things, honestly. But I need to go and do things. I have a lot to do before my new roommate gets here. Anyway, I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I'll see you all on the other side.